being a man for you.
Space, final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, is Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And joining us is Dr. Squee.
Hello, how are we all doing?
Not too bad. Better than Trip does in this episode, but we'll get on to that. So we're here to talk about. Well, we started off saying we're going to talk about These Are The Voyages, the finale of Voyager.
Enterprise.
Of Enterprise, sorry. It's because I've just been editing as Endgame episode. And then we thought, you know what? Let's pair it up with the episode that it's set within, which is the Pegasus. And this is the first time I've done this, like watched the two back to back. And I don't think it necessarily does These Are The Voyages any favours, really. I'm not quite sure how the timeline works, but...
No, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
I've worked out when he must have been there, but it doesn't make any sense from the Pegasus episode actually when he is.
No,
that is taken them sort of. That's the time he's chosen to go to the holodeck.
Yeah, I made a couple of notes as I was going through, like, oh, there's a bit of a gap here. Maybe he went to the holodeck here, and maybe he went to the holodeck there. But we'll no doubt get into that as we go through them. But do have to say, though, Pegasus is a brilliant episode. This is, to say it's late on season 7 TNG, it's a real banger of an episode. And
it's written by Ronald D. Moore, so you've got good pedigree there.
Absolutely.
It's also directed by Lever Burton, who was coming into his own, directing quite a lot of episodes of Star Trek at this point.
Yeah, and Ronald D. Moore obviously would go on to do the Pegasus storyline in Battlestar, which is brilliant. He does well with ships called Pegasus.
Also, like, are you pronouncing it Lever Burton? Is that LeVar Burton? Sorry, it's LeVar, isn't it? Sorry, I was honestly not sure who.
LeVar, Lever.
No, I honestly got lost for a second. I thought it's like, is that a relative? Then I realised it's LeVar. No, sorry. Anyway, that's besides the point.
Lever's probably more appropriate for an engineer. So
yeah.
Very true. Sorry, I digress. No, the only thing I was going to say basically was it's really weird for me because I feel like I've totally switched on both these episodes. I was ready to go on the defence of These Are The Voyages, and I've got a couple of things I can say in favour, but the Pegasus, I think you really benefit from being a bit older watching it. I think it is a real meaty, in-depth story, like more so than a lot of Next Generation. You know, I'll say, like, I love Next Generation, but let's face it, there's a lot of fluff in there. As much as I love it, I don't want to insult it, but you know what I mean? Whereas this really is some meat and potatoes right here. Like, it's, I think it benefits being a bit more mature when you're watching it, quite frankly. You know, you understand those kind of big decisions.
Yeah, and late in the run as well. You know, this is a show that's had a really good run. It knows it's wrapping up. You don't have to pull out the stops for season 7. They could have happily just coasted through, and let's be honest, they did with a few episodes in season.
I was going to say, Masks testifies to that.
Exactly, but this one and the episode before it, I had this on VHS, and it was Parallels and the Pegasus. Like, that was a good pocket money spend any day.
Yeah, that's the perfect thing that I realised, because when I was going to look at it, and I go, of course, the Pegasus, I always think Parallels of Pegasus because they're on the VHS together, as you say.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, it's like, oh, we haven't got the fun one, which is before. We've got this real heavy one. And when I watched it, I was like, it's spellbound. I bet I'd find Parallels, as much as I like a cross-dimensional one, really the plot is quite thin. It's just a fun excuse to jump through different universes and show old crew members you haven't seen for a while. It's a fun one. But this is real.
It's really good. It's a really strong story.
Yeah, definitely.
And you're getting character development of one of the lead characters halfway through the final season.
Yeah. And I love how they tie it together as well. I'm sure we'll get into it, but it's just the whole idea that the first thing we hear about him from Picard is the reason why he chose him was because he won't just follow orders blindly. And this is an instant where it takes us right back to the early days of the Next Generation. It's just such a lovely little bookend to that little bit of plot.
What's great about that as well is in Encounter at Farpoint, Picard is confrontational with Riker about that, and he brings it to him as though, I don't know if I need you on my crew if this is what you do to your captain. And at that time, Picard was a much more brusque, reserved character. And then 7 years later, we come back to it and we find out that that was just all bluster that he was putting on there. And that was actually the thing he liked about Riker.
It's like he was kicking the tires. Like, I want him because he will use his mind, not just blindly follow orders. However, I want to check that he can follow orders. So it's almost like, this is why I chose you, but I'm just going to check you're not just a reckless prick about it, to be frank.
But and he's also giving him the opportunity there. If Riker had said, oh, don't worry, Captain, I'm sorry, I would never do anything like that with you, Picard will have said, right, well, I need a different first officer then.
Yeah.
And it's really good to get a different spin on a familiar scene this much later. Having said that, though, I just said 7 years later, and maybe I'm getting my time mixed up, because when Pressman asked Riker how long he's had his beard, he says, about 4 years. But he's had his beard since season 2. This is season 7.
James, if I ask you right now, how long have you had your beard? Will you be able to date it to the accurate year?
I'd be more than... I mean, I've had my beard probably since I was 18.
No, so, I reckon later on he goes, oh, wait, no, it's been more than 4 years. Of course, I remember I did it when this,
Maybe, but okay.
It's a brain fart. Come on.
Okay, but did the writers write it as a brain fart, or did the writers...
Well,
no,
sometimes
there
were lapse in things like that.
I'm doing my fan head canon. Don't stop.
I can head canon it. That's fine. I just think it's sloppy on the part of the writers to not know how long an actor's, and for Frakes to not say, "Hang on." But anyway,
I love the idea that it's like, you know what? We could just research how long it's been. No, fuck it, make it 4 years. It's season 7. No one cares.
We could just look at the cast pictures. We could ask Jonathan Frakes, but no.
I said 4 years. What's your problem?
Oh, yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe Frakes, he's winding them up. He's like, yeah, I've only had it 4 years. Season 3, clean shave. Do you remember when I said Mr. Worf, fire at the end of Best of Both Worlds? You could see me chin. And they're like, really? Anyway, so we get Captain Picard Day, which has obviously become quite famous now. Everyone celebrates it on Facebook every year, and Lower Decks has made a few references to it, and Picard's kept this banner and everything. And it gives Frakes his opportunity to do his Patrick Stewart impression, which is good fun.
I was quite like, you can imagine Riker doing his Captain Picard impression to other officers, sort of in the bar or whatever, in 10 Forward. But to actually do it to Picard himself is...
I think that's another thing showing how far they've come.
Yeah. It's the sort of thing you can only get...
Just let his guard down.
It's the only sort of thing you can only get away with in the last season of a show. You know, it shows the warmth between them and everything, and that they build up their relationship. I also kind of love... This is what I love about doing rewatch. I completely forgot that was in this episode. So you go, oh, this is the episode where it's Captain Picard Day. And it's such a fun little throwaway bit. And I love it when the Admiral comes on screen. It's like, Captain Picard Day is like, yeah, I'm a role model. And she gives him such a, I do not give a fuck. Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and you can imagine her going back into a meeting going, do you know what Jean-Luc does on his ship? He's only got the kids looking up to him every year, Captain Picard Day.
What's lovely about it is Picard hates it as well, and now he's been judged on something he hates, and he's in a position of defending it. Beauty.
I do like that
really good.
Sort of plays it on
and
Riker. Next month, I'm doing the right. I've suggested the Captain Commander Riker Day.
Riker. Yeah, beautiful.
I don't think you can do it next month, though. Like, you need to space it out 6 months apart. You know, the kids are going to be knackered. Like, you know, they need to break up the school year to have their Commander Riker Day. But anyway, so Admiral Pressman arrives, and this is Terry O'Quinn, obviously very famous from playing John Locke in Lost, and so much other genre work. I think he
Took
was
me a
in the
minute to place
X-Files universe. It was in the X-Files universe 4 times as 4 different characters, which was a little bit bizarre, but there you go.
And
Come on,
Hawaii
we
5-0
watch
as
Star
well.
Trek. How many actors have played multiple characters?
Oh, exactly, yeah, exactly. But usually put different makeup on them, whereas Terry O'Quinn,
Yeah.
I think 2 of his X-Files appearances, he's got a tash, 2 of them he hasn't, and that's the difference. And I think all 4 of his characters get killed. But anyway, so yeah, this is setting up the whole episode. Is the Romulans have found the Pegasus, and we don't know what's significant about the Pegasus for probably 90% of the runtime of this episode. They do a good job of keeping it a case of Riker and Pressman are having these chats, but we're not letting on the secret until
there's obviously
close to the end.
There's obviously some friction between Riker and Pressman. You can tell that as soon as he beams aboard.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that.
And then you have also, like, it's quite obvious there's some top secret technology there, but what top secret technology?
Yeah, that's it.
I just love Riker's haunted look at the beginning. Like, you know, I know they put a button on it by saying, like, you look like you've seen a ghost or something along those lines. But he nails that. He just really looks like, oh shit, like whatever's happening, the bottom's falling out of this world with this guy coming on board. It's just a real lovely moment.
This is literally the last person that he wants to see showing up. And I think some of it, I was watching it thinking, you're making it a bit too obvious, Riker. But then you have to take a step back and go, no, this is a piece of entertainment, and I need to know, I as the audience member need to know that Riker's uncomfortable. So he has to do that in his performance in order
I'd also say that if he didn't know this guy's coming on board, and this is the reason, like, you know, this is the reason why he never wants to see him again, is because what went down. If you saw him in that moment, you didn't know it was coming, you might be that off guard that you do really go that, you know, your reaction is that large. I think it kind of works in the plot as well.
Yeah, it's sort of, it takes Riker back to a much less developed stage than we've ever seen him. Like, he's always been confident and sure of himself and capable in his role and everything. And suddenly this guy knocks him right back to where he was. There's almost sort of like a parent-child dynamic that Riker...
Yeah, fresh out the academy.
Yeah, Riker to an extent becomes almost instantly subservient to him. And it really
everything that
happened, our dynamic.
And everything that happened, like people died on this mission. He went against these people who mutinied, who were doing the right thing. Like, he's got all those years of regret as well. He's buried that until this moment. I really feel like he has made sure he never thought about it again, because if he did, it would be too heartbreaking. And that's why through this episode, he's really playing against, like, suddenly all this sense of loyalty to the Admiral. And, of course, his loyalty he wants to have towards Picard.
And that's it. And, like, the relationship...
Well, I don't even think it's loyalty to the Admiral. It's literally a sense of duty, following orders.
It was at the time, yeah. But Pressman...
I wonder.
Pressman assumes that Riker is still like that. Like,
yeah,
the way Pressman is talking to Riker is as if we two have got this secret and you're on my side and it's us against the world kind of thing. And he doesn't realize that Riker isn't that guy anymore. And he thinks he can resume that power dynamic, and it doesn't work completely. I mean, he gets away with it to a large extent because of the rank structure. Until obviously Riker has to go and watch various holodeck programs and do a bit of soul searching and
but make Hush Puppies totally wrong for several hours.
Riker's culinary skills, we've been there before.
I would also throw in though that
he gets them wrong again this episode.
I do think that there is a thing with the Admiral coming book. To me, it's like, you know, when you see family you haven't seen for a long time. Because unlike you guys, I don't see my brothers all the time and stuff. When I see them, I do find this really childish competitiveness with them comes out and stuff which I've kind of like never comes out on a daily basis. I could talk rationally about my brothers when they're not here. When we're around each other, we turn into kids around each other. It's very childish, very pathetic, really. And I think that's what it is with Riker, that old side of himself, which he rationally, it's not a part of him anymore. But when he's around this guy, I think that misguided sense of duty almost comes back to this guy, this loyalty to this guy,
Yeah.
even though he knows rationally he doesn't have it anymore. Do you know what I mean?
It's almost like bumping into someone who was a bit of a bully at school and them assuming that they can still talk to you in the way that they did at school. And you're like, no, that was 20 years ago or whatever. This is not the dynamic now.
But if they get you in a low moment and you're feeling a bit lonely and stuff, and someone like that from your past does come in with confidence, it can throw you for a loop. You can forget who you are literally, and now, you know? Yeah.
No, it is a really interesting dynamic. And there's a lot of little things that Pressman does that I find really interesting. Like when he's on the bridge, there's Picard's where Picard sits, Riker's where Riker sits, Troy's chair is empty, which would usually be where the guest character would be sitting. But instead, Pressman stood up with Worf, so he's literally looking down on Picard and Riker. And I don't know whether that was something Terry O'Quinn put in or whether LeVar Burton did it as the director. But it works really well, and it tells you a lot about this guy's mindset. Like, I'm going to literally elevate myself above them, but also I'm going to be stood next to the security guy. So there's an implication there of physical dominance. You know, I'm up at the security station. So I think there's a bit of sort of mind games going on within there. And I like Picard's when they run into the Romulans. I mean, this is just great Romulan stuff anyway, but how they're just bullshitting each other about, oh, we're studying these things. Oh, how interesting. We're studying that as well.
Doesn't it remind you of, I mean, the thing which sort of makes me a little bit sad, I think this was the last time we saw Romulans being done this well. And I think even for the next generation, which is really good with Romulans, this is a fantastic performance by that guy. I have no idea the actor's name, I'm afraid, but wow, wasn't he wonderful? Like that real balance of terror kind of territory, how well they squared off against each other and that fake civility. It's just so delicious. Now I kind of would find it very painful to probably, if I'm honest, watch. Like I love DS9 and I love Voyager. However, I think the way they handle Romulans wasn't quite as good. If I'm honest, I think Next Gen nailed that that species.
Yeah, and I think they've developed that in Picard as well. Like we've gone a lot more into this. They've all the secrets in the society and blah blah blah. But yeah, this is a really good exchange between them and pretending that they're both there for no reason. So I can only assume that when the Enterprise was on the way to the asteroids, Riker's been in the holodeck a bit.
There's no justification. There's just none.
Right.
There's a bit where Picard are talking about Riker, and that's where he say, "Why did you pick him as your number one?" Riker's not in that scene, so I'm assuming.
Yeah, this could be one. This could be one of the earlier times when he's in the holodeck. Yeah. I have pinned down the last time that he's in the holodeck. I know exactly when that happened in the episode.
Right.
I mean, I mean, it's just his demeanor in the holodeck as well doesn't match anything in here, and like the fact that he, like the moment when he turns in this episode is really clear, and it's in front of the Admiral, and then he talks to Picard directly afterwards. There's no way he could have got the epiphany on the holodeck for it.
Yeah.
No way.
There is, because the beam back from the Pegasus, and the Admiral goes to his quarters with the device. Riker goes to the holodeck and has his epiphany, and then they meet up again and go to the bridge together.
Yeah, you're right.
That's the only time it can happen.
Yeah,
I'm not buying it because, like, the moment.
No, but that is actually. But for him to make the decision, I am going to tell Picard, which is what he does.
Yeah.
The only time he can do that, because he hasn't done it before they've beamed over, and he had an opportunity to tell Picard. So it's not before they've beamed over. So it has to be after they've beamed over. The Romulans have attacked and trapped him in the asteroid. They beam back to the ship, and between beaming back to the ship and arriving at the bridge, we find out that Pressman has obviously gone to his quarters with the device and he's put it under security. And that must be when Riker decided that he'd take a trip to the holodeck.
It must be.
Okay.
Yeah.
My argument against that is at the beginning of that scene. I'm trying to piece it all together now because I watched them in a hurry today, I must admit. But as I remember it from watching it earlier, when Riker breaks us halfway through a scene, because they're talking for a while and he's not telling Picard, and then there's a moment when the Admiral says something and it triggers him to go, no, I've had enough of this. I'm going to tell them what's actually going on. And that's halfway through a scene. It was at the beginning. You could say it was triggered by a holodeck thing in between scenes. I don't see how halfway through a scene it's triggered by the holodeck, because
it doesn't make
really
sense.
Clear.
That's my biggest issue with it, and we'll get to it when we talk about These Are The Voyages. But that scene finishes with Picard going, I've made my mind up. I'm going to tell Captain Picard. And then, as you say, Squeed, the way the scene plays out, he doesn't go and proactively tell Picard. He tells him when it's the only thing that'll save the ship. He doesn't go there with the intent of telling him. He's backed into a corner and
the only time he has this, because he has the argument with Pressman, doesn't he, while they're on the Pegasus, and he goes, comes out, this is wrong, and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to tell Picard, I'm going to tell everyone what's actually going on.
There was actually
he has it there on the Pegasus, and the only time he could have gone to the holodeck to make it is after they've been back from the Pegasus.
No, I've got
it. It makes no sense for him to go then. But
in all fairness, there was a. Sorry, Jim.
I've worked it out. The one on the holodeck isn't Will Riker, it's Tom Riker, and he's sneaked back on board the ship, and he's trying to get himself back in the good books with Councillor Troy. He knows about it because it's before the transporter accident. So he's trying to weasel his way in with Troy while Riker's busy with all this stuff. And also, since Tom's been back from his exile on his planet, he's put a little bit of weight on. So that also explains the disparity in the look of Riker. So there you go, it's Tom Riker.
There was also a deleted scene in These Are The Voyages when Troy goes, so you can tell Picard all straight away, right? And Riker goes, no, I'm gonna string it out a little bit, maybe halfway through the conversation when there's a decisive moment which makes no sense to what we're doing here, then I'll bring it up. Okay, cool, go for it. That's the bit we're missing.
Yeah, I will do it when it's most not before.
Yeah.
So there's some good stuff like where Picard tells Riker to tell him what's going on, and Riker says, I can only tell you this much. Like there was a mutiny, and I defended him, but I can't tell you. And this is
fine. And Riker says here that I'm under direct orders from an admiral not to talk about this.
Yeah.
But in These Are The Voyages, he says, I've made an oath of secrecy. What?
Yeah.
So you're under direct orders, but you've actually made an oath. Now, they're two very different things. If you've made an oath, you're sort of agreeing with it.
Yeah.
Maybe he sees it that he's complicit by following that order. In essence, he's made no. You could sort of spread that. So you're right. They're not the same thing.
Did he make the
you
oath?
could get away with that.
Did he make the oath of secrecy when it happened on the Pegasus, but now he's under orders? Maybe. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I thought the whole thing was kind of quite delicious the way it did drive this wedge between him and Picard. Exactly. You could just see it burning in his eyes. Again, that's where it sort of takes away from it. And also, the fact that he's told Troy first, I would buy that he would confide in Troy. However, doing it in that moment when he's so reluctant, he won't tell Picard, who really needs to know it. But then he sort of like casually says it to Troy. I don't buy that either.
There's also from like in the Voyages and all that, he's there to Troy. Yeah, we're meeting for supper and we're going for drinks. Is Troy at this point two-timing Worf?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, when do you start seeing Worf? It's in the they have champagne together at the end of Parallels. They aren't quite together.
Yeah, well, I think arguably you've got it sort of in the background from season 5 with Troy and Worf, but it's definitely confirmed before the end of season 7.
I think you've got a window here where you could kind of get away.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, Worf probably wasn't best impressed. But I mean, Riker he finds so much time. Like maybe that's why he's sparring with Worf with the back left and why he's got a bit of a kick in, actually, because Worf's got wind of all these dinners he's having with Deanna.
Yeah.
And it's not actually that he didn't do the thing right. I know it's like a dramatic device that they use all
it's
the
a bit
time,
of foreboding, isn't it,
having
when he's talking to Crusher. It's sort of like saying, yeah,
well, that's it.
I
It's
didn't
like
do...
having characters say one thing. Yeah, it's a bit on the nose where he's like, I know what needed to be done, but I hesitated. You're like, okay, that's a bit. Anyway, another bit where he could have gone to the holodeck, when they've gone into the asteroid and they found it, they say it'll take 8 hours to fit it. So there you go.
Well,
That's
yeah, like this could be when he went to the holodeck when the first beam back, because status says on the bridge it's going to take 7 hours, and then it goes captain's log 8 hours later, and they've got it fitted. So there has been an hour between them beaming back from the Pegasus and walking onto the bridge together.
Yeah.
I like the nice.
I don't buy it. I don't like. It's the only Tom Riker makes sense. Tom Riker makes more sense.
But that's where they're going to beam over to the Pegasus. They go, we can extend the shields so that there's a habitable environment. You mean you don't want to break out the spacesuit props this week? That's it's just one of them. That's a bit convenient. There's nothing to stop you going over there in an atmosphere.
I think they want the action of those people squaring off without spacesuits. You're totally right.
Did they ever have spacesuits in Next Gen?
No, I don't
in the
think
movies
so. Not
they did.
In the movies, but in Next Gen, the TV series, I think it was above the budget were probably spacesuits.
Exactly. That's why
I think also then it was a bit like like space was a bit magic then before they started really nailing it. Everything's got to be scientifically, and it was like, look, we want these people to be able to talk without a barrier in the way. So shields got extended. It's a breathable atmosphere. There was always a reason why you didn't need spacesuit. I think mainly for that reason.
We can beam an atmosphere over into that part. And that official gravity while we at it.
To be honest with you, I think they looked at the original series and go, they're in spacesuits like something. That's a barrier to acting. Let's just
that's a huge thing, isn't it? That they always have as an issue is how do we make them look like they're functional spacesuits, but also let the actors give us expressions and stuff.
Well, the animated series sorted that, didn't it, with the belts, with the force field belts?
Absolutely.
And it just had to paint a yellow line round them.
Which is the way it should be done. I love the central idea of it, that this is a phase cloak. Like, that's such a good idea. And you can totally see where Pressman's coming from, because that would change the balance of power. You could literally go anywhere and do anything with this thing. And it does raise the Treaty of Algeron's always been a bone of contention, hasn't it? It's a good dramatic device to say this is why the Federation don't have cloaking devices. Fair enough. But Pressman does raise good points. Like, why the hell did we sign it? Like, that's giving us such a disadvantage.
Yeah. Why do we let the one Romulans come into our space all the time cloaked?
It sort of basically has the same argument as they use in Insurrection. The whole idea of like they've got someone or someone's on the inside of the Federation Council. So in this case, it's security. In Insurrection, it's kind of like a lot of the council are behind them, but not publicly. So it kind of like they have to shine light on it very publicly to get to dismantle this. It's kind of a nice touch that they've got someone on the inside. It's not just like him going rogue.
No, I mean, we could probably headcanon that Section 31 more than likely had the fingers in this somewhere.
Yeah. When I've watched that and they keep going Starfleet Security.
Yeah.
And a Starfleet Security operative on Romulus. And it does like this is before they had Section 31 mentioned in the shows, but it does make sense that it's Section 31.
And then now we've got Section 31. It's definitely Section 31. Even though it wasn't even mentioned at the time.
The ending then. So I think what Picard does is quite brave. Like we'll use it to get out of the asteroid, but then because it's illegal, because the Romulans need to know we've done this, we'll decloak. It's like that's really ballsy. But the fallout for this, knowing what we know about the Romulans, I mean, you could see that again. This is just headcanon, but you could see that this incident may have sparked certain things that get us to where we are in Nemesis with nearly an all-out war, you know. Because I can't see the Romulans taking this lightly. I mean, it's just a huge, huge thing. And I think that's maybe the only negative aspect of this episode is it's wrapped up a little bit too quickly. I'd have liked to have seen the fallout for Romulans, but also for Riker.
And it wasn't followed up in DS9 either, and it could have been.
Yeah.
There's another thing I have to it's going back a little bit, but it's just a perfect moment I have to give a shout out to. When the Admiral and Picard are basically having their little pissing contest, like, you know, and Picard's clearly winning over the, you know, who's going to be arrested, who's going to be taken away from mutiny, whatever. But I love the moment where Picard turns to Data and goes, like, haven't noted in the logs that I'm against this course of action, and he stares at the Admiral like it's about the most you can do with Data without getting emotional. He stares at the Admiral while going, "It will be noted." Like it's a real.
No, it says it has been noted. Now this made me think: does Picard just use Data as his log?
Yeah, but I kind of like the idea that it's like if you had any vocal inflection that's going against who we know Data to be, who we know he can be due to his program. If you get him to give a look, he could have picked up that cue from, watching human interactions and known that's the appropriate thing to do. It's the perfect way of injecting some emotion into him without putting any emotion into him. I just thought it was a wonderful acting choice.
Yeah, Brent Spiner was a genius at doing things like that. You knew exactly what Data was feeling, for want of a better term.
Yeah,
nearly all the time is brilliant.
It's the problem I have with like Vulcans after Next Generation. Basically, they always have to inject some emotion. They're like, I think Tuvok and Voyager did a pretty good job of it, but generally when they have a Vulcan, they always get pissy, and it's like that's an emotion still. They're still emotional.
Yeah.
And it's like it really annoys me. Whereas Next Generation and the original series were so good at just it had to be a logical reason. You had to plot it out, and the same with Data, who's in effect a kind of like a Vulcan substitute in this series. He's a Spock kind of like for the Next Generation, and he never breaks. There's never a moment where you can go, "Oh, well, he fucked that up." He was so good at just always having a good reason why he did everything. I just thought it was a beautiful moment.
So that's the Pegasus then, which of course is just a prequel to the main episode we're here to talk about. Which is, let's put it in a bit of context. So Enterprise wasn't doing too well in the ratings. They did a bit of a reboot with season 3, did the Zindiac. It picked up a bit. They brought Manny Koto in as a showrunner. He really injected some life into it with season 4. We had these 2-3 episode arcs. We got rid of the Time War, thank goodness. And we were getting these really good arcs going on. It was really starting to fire on all cylinders. Got cancelled, and we get this one episode to wrap it all up. And this is what they do.
May I just, before we savage this, because I feel the need to savage this, as the person who was going to give the defense, I just want to put out my defense points I was going to do before I watched it again, because I think some of it still does stand. Because, I genuinely think the idea behind this, actually, when I spoke to Robert Duncan McNeil, and we talked about the different crews, he said that they were sort of like, he didn't say undeservedly, he wasn't nasty about it, but he said, look, they actually seemed really confident, which given what happened is ironic, or something along those lines. I hope I'm kind of accurately getting the flavor of what you said. But I think to begin with, when they first did that show, that was the feeling. It's like, we don't need the word Star Trek. We're just going to call ourselves Enterprise. We don't need to worry about the history. We're just going to be our own thing. It's going to be great. And we're going to be the best Star Trek, or, the best selling Star Trek since Next Generation. I think that was the intent. And by this stage, they've realized, no, they are standing on the shoulder of giants. They put Star Trek in the title. And I think this was the idea behind this was to make this canon, make this a part of the bigger piece. And that's why you have the idea of the Next Generation framework. And I kind of applaud that idea. It was a way of welcoming it into the family when it was like the red-headed stepchild by their own volition to begin with.
Yeah.
And I love all that about it. It's sort of like the reason why I always defend the title theme music, even though it's not the best. I get why it's there. It's because it's about American ingenuity, and that American power balance kind of gets that feeling of creation and, like, you know, becoming something. And I think that's what this was meant to be. It's not very good.
It feels like it feels like to me it does the opposite in that it's just going, you're not as good as Next Generation. And it's just, it feels like they're saying that all the way through. Like, this is not just your season finale, this is your series finale. And we're not even letting it be an Enterprise episode. This is effectively a TNG episode.
Yeah.
With it's like the Menagerie series, except that the original series, that was their show, and they used the footage from the pilot. This is Archer and crew's show, but Riker's running it, and they have like a couple of throwaway lines. Like, they have a bit where they do a toast and they go, "Here's to the Next Generation," which was a better show than
they even mentioned All Good Things. They said the word All Good Things in it as well.
Go, All Good Things, a good series finale. You know, it's like, all right, guys, you're rubbing it on a bit thick here. Like, anyway,
I mean, look, there's even a moment where they stop in the middle of this. Like, again, even if you accept the framework of it, they stopped to have a little data joke put in there with a voiceover from both Brent Spiner. This isn't a Next Generation episode. Look, we all love to hear from Brent Spiner, but, like, not the time.
We also have Worf in it. Worf does one over the comms as well at one point.
Does it?
He calls all command officers to the bridge.
Right.
Oh, okay. At least that works within the plot that they're doing, but the data one was just really shoehorned.
Like, I'm not being funny as well. Like, we've just done Pegasus, and it's a fantastic episode, but it's not like it's The City on the Edge of Forever or The Trouble with Tribbles, in that, you know, you speak to anyone who knows Star Trek and you go, that episode with the Tribbles, they'll probably get that. So if you watch something like Trials and Tribulations in Deep Space Nine, even someone who's not a diehard Trekkie will go, oh, it's that one with the Tribbles.
Now that's a great way to do sort of going into another show.
Exactly. But if you're not very well versed in your Star Trek history, you're not going to remember that there was an episode of TNG where Riker had a bit of a dilemma. And, you know, it's an odd pull. It's like,
it's like, surely they could have thought of, like, if you're going to do it, let's pick one of the fan favourite episodes of TNG to do it for him.
Because they did this in an audio book. Well, it's an audio book. It was obviously a book first, but I listened to it on audio book. There was one of them where they had Picard visiting the holodeck because he was trying to make a decision, and he visited the episode where Kirk gets split into two, good Kirk and bad Kirk, with the good dog and bad dog.
Yeah.
And he talks to the good Kirk about what he's going to do, why he's doing it, and he gets advice. It's very similar kind of framework, and it predates this. And I thought, well, yeah, they picked a real classic episode. I think Pegasus is a classic episode and probably should be remembered as well, but it just isn't. It just isn't for whatever reason.
It hasn't got that. It's not in the zeitgeist to the extent that some of them other episodes are. And
you're like All Good Things or something.
Yeah.
No, or even Best of Both Worlds. Sorry, I meant.
Yeah,
both.
Like, here's an idea. I'm no disrespect to Frakes or Marina Sirtis. They are visibly older than they were when they did season 7 of TNG. The episode Pegasus, as we've said, is not generally known outside of Trek fandom. The link to it isn't that strong anyway. Why didn't we just do a story set after Nemesis, and it's Riker on the Titan with Troy as his first officer, and there's a dilemma, and it actually ties into this. You know, something about he's having trouble with the Andorians or something. And then got an actual. You don't have to do any temporal mathematics to work out when it's all fitting in. You don't have to work out how it's got anything to do with it. You can write a story that specifically ties into this, and it'd work, and you won't have to worry about them looking older. But no, we're going to pick a fairly obscure episode. We're going to pretend that this happened at the same time. It also makes Riker look really slack. Like, I've got all this stuff going on. I've got Pressman, I've got Picard, we've got a potential diplomatic incident that could start a war. I'm going to piss off to the holodeck.
And make us puppies wrong.
And yeah, and Troy, who's meant to know him the best. I'm sorry, Counselor, but how does this help? This doesn't equate.
She even ruins the program for him right at the start.
Yeah.
She ruins the program for him and ruins the episode for us all on first time viewing. Have you got to the point yet where Trip dies?
Yeah,
she says that within the first 5 minutes.
Oh no, yeah. Well, it's a bit later, but she does say that, like, yeah. But anyway, like, the thing which also annoys me is that they have given Marina Sirtis, she's trying her best with it, but they've given her the worst exposition lines. She is only there to say, it's like, yes, have you got to this bit? This bit is this. This is what's happening at this point. It's like, he gets nothing.
Yeah, you should play the part of the chef because everyone goes and talks to him.
Yeah, which we've never seen. Why didn't they even at least set that up in some episodes coming into it?
They reference the chef a few times.
Yeah, they reference him, but they never have him as the counselor or anything. They could have just had a few episodes leading up to this when they go, it's like, oh, it's just talking to the chef. Boy, he's a great guy to talk to if you've got a problem. You know, just throw in a few bits in the episodes leading up to it. I mean, it'd be a little shoehorn, but it wouldn't be as badly as this. You're sort of like referencing stuff we've never seen, and you're basically using the excuse, well, it's 10 years later. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and that's the thing. This idea of this is now 10 years on from the last Enterprise episode we watched. And it just kind
of... No, it's 6 years on.
6 years on, sorry.
But, yeah, because it's 10 years.
Oh, so 10 years total.
The Enterprise has been on its mission for 10 years.
You get
it's 6 years on.
You get all this weird stuff that doesn't work, like, oh, Shran's alive. Well, that's not a surprise to me because I didn't know he's dead. That happened in 6 years that we weren't watching, so...
that happened 3 years ago, according to your timeline here.
Now, here's another one, the better episode. Shran's daughter's been kidnapped. Just make Taken, but with Shran. Just do the Liam Neeson film Taken, but with Archer and Shran. There you go. That's a better episode.
Can I also check something? Because they said that Andorra was the first planet they went to.
No, Rigel was.
Rigel. Oh, okay. So it didn't...
Yeah.
Was that when they went to the space station?
Yeah, they go there. It's the first stop because they have to meet someone and the Sullivan attack them there. And so
okay, that seems a little bit of a weak link, but like, okay, fair enough. Like if they'd gone to Kronos or something where they met the Klingons, that would have been a stronger link to the original episode.
Tie in, but
like you don't remember that as being Rigel specifically, or I don't think that's a large plot point. It's just where something happened. Whereas the first planet they really visited was to go to the Klingon home.
It's not. It doesn't have the same impact as in All Good Things, directly revisiting the things that we did. You know, it's not
exactly.
And the
rest. By the way, can I just ask a quick? Sorry, Joe. Can I just ask a question? Did T'Pol always have that thing saying T'Polnish on her name tag?
No, that's been added for this episode. That happened during.
So shit.
Yeah. In case we've all forgotten who she is in the 6 years that we've missed.
Yeah. I get the pips, but why the name badge, which no one else has got?
In case we've forgotten who she is in 6 years.
Maybe they're like...
What the fuck?
No, I mean, if we're being really harsh, and she started with that, like, Vulcan dementia thing, so maybe it's for her. I doubt it. Maybe. You know, I don't know. Maybe they've gone really racist towards Vulcans, and they're like, we want you all to have a name badge on, so, you know... Or it's got came out of bought the Federation or whatever, so everybody's got to have. I don't know. It's just another one of them silly bits.
I don't know why it pissed me off so much, but it really did.
It's just silly. It's just an unnecessary detail. Yeah. So the thing with Trip, so it is weird that they just dropped that in, but it does serve to create a bit of dramatic tension in that scene where they have a shootout, because you're watching it thinking, oh, this is where Trip's going to die, but then Archer saves him. So it sort of works. You wouldn't have that level of tension if they hadn't have done that. But I think doing it robs the episode later of it.
Well, I think it was an injustice to Trip anyway. Why did they have to kill him?
Well, I don't even mind killing him, but I just wish he had a real satisfying death, and that you had some moments of him about him. Every moment he is in this is about T'Pol or is about Archer. None of it's about him or where he's going. None of it's actually about Trip, which is really annoying, given he's the character who's dying. Why in this episode is it really striking that he dies when you don't talk about him? Like, even the moment when T'Pol asks him about, do you remember us? That's only triggered by Riker in a holodeck asking that. So the scene we're seeing presumably never actually happened.
No, exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, a lot of it, as soon as Riker starts playing the chef, then we have to question what we're watching, and we're not getting...
Is he playing the same... Like, if you watch this, he's making the same ball of dough with everyone that he talks to.
So he's doing the same bit over and over.
Well, we do know that it takes him about 7 or 8 hours to make a pizza.
Yes, that's
naturally.
True. We do know that he has no idea what an omelette is and can make one egg will feed his entire body of friends scrambled egg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's now making hush puppies, and what's annoying is I can understand no one else knowing what they're doing because it's a Southern American dish. But Trip walks in and he sees Riker with this ball of dough and immediately goes, hush puppies. Trip doesn't know what a bloody hush puppy is either then, because a hush puppy is quite it's a thick batter, but it's liquidy still. You have to literally scoop it to deep fry it. It isn't like a bread loaf, what Riker has.
No, obviously the culinary consultant is not doing the job in this.
Mean, all you really had to do was just tweak the dialogue in the scene I'm talking about. All you have to do is have the T'Pol coming in. Someone says something to her, which triggers her to come into the chef and go, it's like, I've been wondering, do you ever miss people on here? And then, like, that triggers off the conversation. And that means it's in her head, so it makes sense why they're having that conversation on the shuttlecraft. Because they've had that conversation, because it's come from her.
Yeah.
It's not come from Riker as a character in a holodeck.
And again, like, the whole conceit of this episode is this will help Riker make his decision in Pegasus. How? It doesn't.
There's no sort of... He's asking them, do you follow Captain Archer's orders? But all he's doing is diverted the ship to go on a mission for his friend. What's the dilemma for any of them to follow this mission?
Can we get into some of the questions he asked of them? Because I'm sorry, but Riker comes off stone cold creepy to me. Because first of all, he gives a kiss to frozen hologram T'Pol, which looks a little creepy. I don't think you have that scene in now. Then when he's questioning people, it's like, do you ever fancy him? What the fuck's that got to do with it? Do you ever punch him? That's weird. And then the doctor's going, it's like, yeah, do you know, he's once almost addicted to painkillers. I mean, why is he saying that to a chef? Like, at least have a little bit where he goes, oh, turn off the Hippocratic Oath programming, so he talks about this, you know. It's like, what the fuck? The questions he's asked make no fucking sense to anything. Even to the Pegasus, it doesn't make sense.
It's just peculiar. The whole setup is peculiar. And then he summons, like, a ghost hologram of Trip, because Trip's already died at this point in the timeline. And instead he brings on this sort of ghoulish recreation of him. And what? It's just so weird. And then the final sort of insult is we get Archer about to make this speech that effectively is the
starts the Federation.
And it's like they're taking the piss. It's like they go, no, I don't need it now, off. And as if to go, yeah, your show's done.
Yeah.
Off we go. And it's just what I mean. Even if you're not a big fan of Enterprise, it deserves better than this.
Yeah, I mean, again, none of the conclusion points really are that satisfying. So you don't know where half the crew's going. They just generally goes like, well, I'm going to follow Archer. I'm going off here. Like, there's a few of them who get more service than others. Like, even the last scene with T'Pol, when she's there with Archer and he gives her a hug, it's not remarkable. Archer, as a human, giving someone a hug. What would be remarkable if she hugged back, or she even says as she's leaving, it's like, by the way, I'll miss you, which ties back to what she was saying earlier. That would be a lovely little button. There's no button on anything. It's just he goes out there. When he goes out to give the speech as well, wouldn't it be great if he started giving the speech and he starts talking about Tuck? He goes like, you know what, I had a prepared speech, but fuck it, my best friend's just died. And like, he was one of the reasons why we're here. It's thanks to the people like him who sacrificed, you know, some sort of lovely speech which tied it together. None of it. It's just straight to the captains giving the Enterprise speech, which is nice, but
I think
want something.
Yeah, it's like they are just mugging the audience off, just going, you're not even going to get to see this speech.
Yeah.
Your finale's not even a proper finale of Enterprise. It's a TNG episode, but it's a half-assed TNG episode. And you don't get to see the speech at the end. And then Riker just goes, computer end program, and that's it, done. And it's just awful. I mean, really
I've made my decision. I'm going to tell Captain Picard what's happened.
But you don't.
Well,
right.
If he's gone straight to do it, it's obviously when they're about to use the device.
Yeah, but he doesn't decide that until midway through the scene, so it doesn't even fit in with the episode that they're trying to do. But yeah, to wrap up then, something positive. That sequence of the three Enterprises is lovely. Like they've obviously redone the Enterprise D, and it's sort of the quality now that the remasters are. So all of TNG looks this good now because they've remastered it. But at the time, this was the best quality shot you'd ever seen of the Enterprise D. And then there's that lovely shot of Kirk's Enterprise, and it segues into Archer's Enterprise. And just that 30 seconds is just gorgeous and puts a lovely bow on it. But the 45 minutes that comes before it is just dreadful.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of it.
Season 4 of Enterprise had been really, really strong.
Yeah.
And the literal... It's a disservice to the whole show as a show, but it's also, you've ruined a really good season by finishing it this way.
The thing which a lot of people have brought up is also the thing where they say about like, Tuck and the captain, they had this shorthand which we've never seen. There's so many of these things. They had a season. They must have, at least in the back end of the season, they must have known it's getting cancelled, where they could have fed stuff in ready for the final, like they do with the Troy and Worf relationship in Next Generation. They at least reference it a couple of times, so when you get to there at the end of the season, you know it's already been set up. They don't do any of this with this. They just decide this last episode they're just going to write it cold. They're just going to go into all these concepts we never heard before because it's 7 years or 5 years or how many years later, 6 years later, and. I mean, like you say, that gorgeous thing at the end with the speech, which would have been so much more powerful if you'd had Admiral Archer's speech, maybe leading into this, where he starts almost as if he's going to say it, and then we see the other two captains, and then his. They could have woven it in so much more artfully with this gorgeous ending, but it's just kind of just tacked on at the end almost.
There's no point to it. I mean, the only thing I can think of is maybe why did they do it this way? Is if somewhere in the back of their heads they thought we might get picked up again for a season 5 at some point. So for us finale, what we'll do is we'll jump 10. we'll make it a holodeck, so it's not absolutely canonical if we need to retcon it at some point. And so were they leaving himself a bit of space to do more Enterprise stories if they got picked up? I don't know.
It really felt when the fans were doing the Save Enterprise campaign and raised quite a bit of money on Kickstarter. Like, fair play to the fans who did that. But even then, they seem to be saying, it's like, no, we're wrapping up. This is it. You know, they seem pretty set that even if they, you know, they decided this was it. Like, you know, it would be too late afterwards. By the time they need to commissioned it, everyone would have been off doing different things. If not
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if this happened in the modern day, it'd be like, oh, maybe Netflix will pick it up, or
maybe Amazon, or
that didn't happen in these.
those conversations have sort of got to happen a bit before they start breaking down sets and stuff, because then a big expense is redoing those sets and stuff. Like now, you could probably do that. Back then, it was still quite cost prohibitive to redo sets. Now they'll do that at a drop of the hat to bring it back to Netflix. They'll just go, oh, the invoice got a refit. It looks kind of the same, but it'll look better.
SFX magazine at the time did a little sort of cartoon, and it was a picture of Scott Bakula in his Enterprise uniform stood outside the Paramount office, and he had a big placard with him, and it said, "Bring back Enterprise, brackets, or Quantum Leap, end brackets." And I think there's probably more chance of the latter happening, unfortunately. But
yeah, there keeps being rumours of that being rebooted, isn't there?
Recently, yeah.
Apparently, there is a script. It's just getting it greenlit by someone.
Yeah, I'd be up for more Quantum Leap. Bring Quantum Leap back.
Oh, always.
Anyway, I think we'll leave it there. I think we've been reasonably balanced and kind on These Are The Voyages. We could go on all day, but
As kind as you can be.
I was going to say, like, it did its best, but it really didn't.
It's one of the really weak episodes of Enterprise.
The scary thing is, for a long time, this could have been the last ever Star Trek we ever got.
I know.
Fortunately, that's not the case. So we can look back on this and have a bit of a laugh, because this would have been the last ever Star Trek. I would not have been happy.
No. Well, tomorrow we get brand new Star Trek, don't we?
We do, which for anybody listening on the podcast, I'll be honest, I don't know when you're going to be listening to this, because we've got so much new Trek to cover. So by the time you listen to this, we've probably already covered Prodigy Season 1 and Discovery Season 4. And
Picard Season 2.
We've also got the Endgame one hasn't gone out yet, has it?
The Endgame one has gone out today as we're recording. So that's out
actually
there.
This week.
Oh, I'm glad we got that out before Prodigy started.
We
got that. So whenever you're listening to this, we'll be back next week talking about whatever we're talking about next week.
If you are watching live on the live stream, you're going to have to find some way to watch it from America on Paramount Plus. It's going to be 10. It's going to be 10 weeks for everyone else,
and it's you've got to find a safe, convenient, and legal way of watching it on the live stream.
Yeah,
but however you choose to do that, just don't tell us. But anyway, we'll wrap it up there then, guys. So if you want to get in touch with us, we're on @RetrekPod on Twitter, retrekpod@gmail.com. You can find Dr. Squee if you look up the Dr. Squee show. He's doing all sorts of great stuff at the minute. Elliot's doing his current build of the Voyager on Retrek Model Studios.
Yeah. Some very clever effects going into that.
Today. And thanks for trekking with us this time. We'll see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Bye-bye.